Buenos días por venir, gracias por estar aquí. Vamos a tener esta sesión en inglés, entonces vamos a cambiar. I will change to English, I will see changes. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure having all of you here. Well, this is a welcome to l'OME, this is the Observatorio Mediterráneo de l'Energie, and we will continue with Mrs. HOUDA ALLAL. She is the managing director of the l'OME, and Mr. KARBUZ, c'est le directeur de Hidrocarburos de l'OME aussi. Monsieur EGEA, and maybe I change between French and English, but I will try to explain in English. We agree with them to do in English. Well, we have a very long relationship with l'OME. We started to collaborate with them in 2007 in the first or the second Foro Euro-Mediterranean of Energy in Palma de Mallorca. After this, we will have several relations with them in the Congress in Barcelona twice. It's a pleasure of having them here to present this third edition of the Mediterranean Energy Perspective. As you know, all you are member of the club, normally that we have this presentation of all the reports from the international agencies, like International Energy Agency or the Department of Energy of the United States or the European Union. And this is a new step for the club to present all these reports which are designing the new relationship in the energy world. This is a good relationship with them because they are like us, and Madame Halal would explain after this. This is a non-profit organization like us for companies, and this is something we are very interested in collaborate with them in this kind of issues. Well, before giving them the floor, I would like to highlight this book. This is very interesting. I read them, and this book is talking about the tale of two shores, a different approach to these two shores, the North Shore and the South Shore of the Mediterranean Sea. I recommend you this book for the lecture for doing this business. Okay. Well, this is all about this from my side, the club, and I'll introduce Madame ALLAL. She is responsible for the managing director of the l'OME. She got as a managing director in the 2013, and well, I'm going to give her the floor to present the l'OME and this case. Madame ALLAL.
Thank you very much. So good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank you for your hospitality and for allowing this event to happen jointly with the Club of Energía. Indeed, we have a long cooperation, but we would like to strengthen this cooperation, and I'm very glad that you have accepted to host this event today to share with you the results of the Mediterranean Energy Perspective. And of course, allow me to thank our member who made this possible and happen, and Mr. EGEA and his colleagues that has worked in order for us to be here today with you and to make this presentation. So before going to the main topic of why we are here today, allow me just to very briefly present OME for those who do not know us, and then after the presentation we can discuss more, but this is not the purpose. But I will take, if you do agree, 5 minutes from your time to say who we are and why we are here today to present this book and where that is come from. So OME is celebrating this year its 25 years of existing as association, non-profit association, which is gathering the energy companies in the whole Mediterranean countries. and not only Mediterranean by nature, but also the countries, the companies which have interest in developing energy in the Mediterranean region. So we are private, as I said, incorporated in 1991, although it has been established already in 1988. And so the purpose is to promote cooperation between companies and countries in the Mediterranean region with regard to energies and all energies. So we are committed to promote dialogue. So OME is the gathering platform and is also a think tank. Most recently, we have a new role. You may have heard about this cooperation between the Euro-Mediterranean cooperation and the willingness to strengthen the cooperation between the Europe and the Mediterranean countries, and the launch of, under the umbrella of the Union for the Mediterranean, of 3 regional platforms, one dealing with renewable energy and energy efficiency, one dealing with electricity integration market, and one dealing on gas. So OME is playing the role of Secretariat of the gas platform, which we talk gas platform. So this is launched for more than 1 year now, and we are also the stakeholder in the 3, and we are in the steering committee of the 3 platforms because of this character of OME being the only one in the region which is dealing with all energies in the Mediterranean countries. So we are located in Paris because OME has been, since its inception, born in Paris. So this is dialogue and cooperation, as I said. We are the think tank, so as the name Observatoire Méditerranéen de l'Énergie in French means that we observe, but we don't only observe energy. So for more than 25 years, we are following, it is our daily work, what's happening in the energy in the Mediterranean region, but we don't only observe and have a detailed database on energy, but we also do perspectives. And this is something which is one of our main activities from the think tank part, is to analyze and to make prospects on what would be the future of the Mediterranean, and this is the topic of the presentation today. We do also perform training activities meaning bringing together staff from energy companies and partners in order to not only learn but exchange and have best practices and receive courses from also experts from member companies. So it's quite different from the training course that we can have, including in very high level institutions. So what are our distinctive features? It is companies, so our corporate members are companies open to all energy companies interested and acting in the Mediterranean region. We have a staff, so we are a team which is based in Paris, but we work very closely with experts from the members of all OME, and we have also new, I would say, characteristic is that our technical committees are open to partners, which means that if a company it is not eligible to become member but is interested in a specific topic in the Mediterranean, it can become a partner of a technical committee. So, as I said, the specificity of OME is that we are working on all energy sources, and we don't work alone. So that is why we are here, and it's natural that we work with other national or associations, and also regional associations like MEDREG, like METESO, like GIE. So whenever we have common interest, we work together because we believe that working together will allow each of us to go further than what we can do while working alone. So among also the gathering platform, we have some publications. Today we will, SOHBET will present in details the results of MEP 2015, but we do also prepare in-depth similar work what we do in the regions, and we have already published 2 in-depth studies, one on Egypt and one on Turkey, and we have other publications and the magazines. So you have all the information on our website. I don't want to be long, and was not the purpose, but just to give you a brief overview of who we are. And so I leave the floor to SOHBET, who will go to the main topic of today. And again, thank you very much for coming, and I hope that the exchange will be useful to you. Thank you.
You have the presentation. So.
Thank you very much for this kind invitation. And at the beginning, I should say sorry, because I will bombard you with numbers. But don't bother with the numbers. So I will not say, you know, from this to this, all the way you will have a lot of numbers, but I will just draw your attention to some key issues and present some key trends. This is my intention. But if we have some specific questions, we can have, I think, at the end of the presentation. Yes. Our book, this Mediterranean Energy Perspective, was published 3 months ago. Most of you probably know International Energy Agency's World Energy Outlook that gives the energy future forecasts of the world till the year 2040. What we do at OME is basically the same, but the focus is the Mediterranean. We have supply-demand scenarios for every single country in the Mediterranean to the horizon 2040 under 2 alternative demand scenarios. One is we call conservative scenario, and the other is proactive scenario. Well, let me spend maybe 1 minute what these scenarios mean, because you will see a lot. CS, PS. CS, conservative scenario, but don't go through this. I will just skip. Instead, I will tell you in 2 sentences what I mean. Conservative scenario, think of business as usual or politics as usual. Okay? And in proactive scenario, what we mean is more than business as usual. We assume there will be a heavy push for renewables and strong implementation of energy efficiency and conservation policies. So, more green scenario with energy efficiency and conservative or business as usual scenario. Now, before going into further details, this is the map what we mean with Mediterranean. So Portugal is included, even Jordan is included, some other countries also included. So this does not mean only the countries that are bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So this is more or less in line with the definition of Mediterranean of the Union for the Mediterranean. Now, we have a model, a very detailed energy demand model, which is basically, in terms of methodology, very close to the energy demand model that is used at the International Energy Agency. Data is more or less the same. Data methodology, instead of energy balances, is the same as well. So we are 3 people, ex-IEA people at OME, so we adopted International Energy Agency's both statistics and modeling framework. We even use the same software. So, but we have the advantage because International Energy Agency does not have individual energy demand model for these countries in the Mediterranean region. IEA even does not have energy demand model for every single country in the North Africa, which are crucial for world energy supply. Now, we have in-depth energy demand model for every single country, except for some former Yugoslav Republic countries, former Yugoslavia, like Albania, Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Serbia. So we aggregate those countries, but for all the others, we have specific energy demand model by fuel, by sector. I give you one example. For Egypt, our energy model has more or less 500 equations. For Turkey, we have over 750 equations to find out what the energy demand in Turkey will be. Now, like any energy model, similar the case for the World Energy Outlook of the IEA or Energy Information Administration or OPEC's view, we have three basic assumptions. One, population growth. These numbers come from UN Statistics Division. One, income growth or GDP growth. This is taken from different sources, including the IMF. And oil price and any other energy price assumptions. We assume a mixture of energy scenarios, energy price scenarios from United States Energy Information Administration and IEA's World Energy Outlook. So we do not make price assumptions for the future. We just rely on the other people's assumptions. Now, when we look at the Mediterranean region, between 2015 and 2040, we will have 100 million more people in the region. So the population will grow by 105, exactly, 105 million. And most of it in the south region. With the south, I mean North Africa and East Mediterranean, including Turkey. Now, this is a huge number, 100 million, 100 more million. And on the other hand, economy, the income will grow a lot, more than 70% between 2015 and 2040. And what is important is here you see energy income growth rates per year. So it will be faster. And the importance of the South Mediterranean is shown in yellow. The original is orange. And GDP per capita in the south, meaning GDP per capita in North Africa and East Mediterranean will almost double. So we have 100 million more people in North Africa and East Mediterranean. Income per capita almost double in that area, and this translates into increasing energy demand by more than 50% for total Mediterranean. And today, the North Mediterranean accounts more than half of the total Mediterranean energy demand. But when we look at in the future, the share of North Africa and East Mediterranean in total Mediterranean energy consumption will increase from 36% to 56%. So this is enormous. And majority of this increase basically will come from two countries, Egypt and Turkey. I will talk about those two countries later on. Now, incremental energy demand, as I said, mostly will come from south. So that means 98% of the incremental energy demand will come from south. And basically, the future CO2 emissions, most of it, will also come from North Africa and East Mediterranean. What does that mean? These two pictures show? They show that current policies and current trends are not sustainable. What is the alternative? Alternative is so-called proactive scenario. Push for renewables and strong implementation of energy efficiency and energy conservation, which will allow us to reduce energy demand by 20% in 2040. But even then, the energy mix more or less won't change much. The energy future of the Mediterranean will remain fossil fuel based, both in conservative and proactive scenario. However, the share of renewables in the proactive scenario by definition will be much higher. We have in the proactive scenario 20% savings, but we will have also 27% decrease in CO2 emissions. We are talking about region, Mediterranean region as a whole. And in that case, if we apply proactive scenario, we would nearly halve the fossil fuel imports. Now let's look at fuel by fuel. So I know later on it will get complicated, but when we talk about Mediterranean, we should keep one thing in mind. This picture, what we see, is different when we look at North Mediterranean and South Mediterranean. I will show the difference later on. So this is in conservative scenario. Oil and gas will remain the dominant fuels in energy mix, and there will be a high growth of non-hydro renewables. This is conservative scenario. In proactive scenario, of course, the increase or speed of increase of oil and gas will not be as fast, but non-hydro renewables will boom. Even then, as a Mediterranean region whole, oil and gas will be the dominant fuels in energy mix. But when we look at by region, North Mediterranean and South Mediterranean, we have different picture. In North Mediterranean, basically mostly EU countries, the importance of oil and gas diminishes and renewables boom. In South Mediterranean, again, South Mediterranean means North Africa and East Mediterranean, including Turkey. Oil and gas are still dominant, but the increase is not too fast in proactive scenario. Well, production will increase, demand will boom, means imports will increase as well. But what do we have in terms of natural resources in the region? Mediterranean region accounts for less than 5% of the world's oil and gas reserves, proven reserves. In terms of oil, Libya accounts more than 60% of the Mediterranean oil reserves. For gas, as you can imagine, Algeria accounts for slightly more than 50% of the Mediterranean gas reserves. But this should, we should be careful about with reserves, okay? There is always, we should put a footnote. We should not rely too much on reserves numbers. These are officially published numbers by BP, EIA, OPEC, etc. But again, we should be careful. Algeria, for example, take BP statistics. Look at the Algerian gas reserves. In the past, more or less 15 years, Algerian gas reserves are constant. So this is in practice not possible, because constant reserves mean you discover as much gas that you produced. This is not possible. So that is why we should be careful about reserves numbers. So this is conventional picture. So again, Mediterranean accounts for less than 5% of world's oil and gas reserves. But when we look at the unconventionals, picture is a little bit different. Libya, for example, has the world's 5th largest undiscovered technically recoverable oil resources. So the term is important. Technically recoverable. So this does not mean economically recoverable. And in terms of shale gas, Algeria has the world's 3rd largest technically recoverable shale gas resources. So we have such a big potential, but there is a small but, is the social acceptance. In Algeria, there was a test production, hydraulic fracturing. So this results were very successful, but it created a huge social resistance, as it was the case in Europe. So social acceptance is not there yet, but the potential is there. There is another conventional potential in the east part of the Mediterranean. So we have 2 important US Geological Survey studies. Both are conducted in 2010. One on Nile data, one on Levant Basin. If we take those 2 studies, plus the geophysical studies of the Cyprus Republic, and put all the undiscovered conventional gas resources in these 3 studies together, we come up more than 10 trillion cubic meters of gas, technically recoverable gas. Assume we find half of it. That would mean a new North Sea. So the potential is there, enormous. And there are some very large discoveries, like Tamar and Leviathan, 2 of the largest gas discoveries, deep water gas discoveries between 2001 and 2010. And finally, you know, there is a Zohr field discovered very close to Cyprus Block 10 in Egypt side. So Zohr is a geological game changer. That field was the largest ever discovered gas field in the Mediterranean Sea, but in a different geological target. So there is a huge potential. And this, because of this new geological game changer aspect, Republic of Cyprus looked at the seismic and geological data again and opened recently 3rd international bidding round, because they expect at least 5 new Zohr structures in Cyprus blocks. However, there are some challenges too, because the region does not have infrastructure in place. So there are a lot of plans to export these discovered gas resources from the region to international markets, either by pipeline, through Turkey or through Greece, or by LNG via 2 idle LNG plants in Egypt. Now, these are the resources side. Let's look at the production. There was animation, but anyway. We expect Mediterranean oil production to increase by 1 million barrels per day between 2015 and 2040. A majority, almost all, this increase will come from Libya. What about Algeria? We think that Algerian oil production will go down. Egypt is already net oil importer, and the other countries won't have much. And there is some condensate production in Israel, etc., but these are small amounts. The future in the Mediterranean is in gas. Where in gas is Algeria, in parentheses. We don't see too much future in Algeria because we think that Algerian gas production will peak between 2030, 2035 and then decline. And we think that Algeria will not be able to fulfill or feed more than 100 billion cubic meters of gas into its existing export infrastructure. The majority of the increase will come from Egypt and Libya in the future, and there will be also new areas like Israel will have more than 30 billion cubic meters production, and some from Cyprus. So when we look at that, so 2030 is a between 2030 and 2035 is a critical date for the region as a whole, because this will be the peak period for production. This is the production will increase more for gas than oil, but demand will increase faster than production for both oil and gas. One thing is important here for gas demand. In conservative scenario, majority of the increase in gas demand will be because of power generation, as is the case today. But in proactive scenario, it's not the case. Gas will be more and more used for industrial sectors, in industry sectors. What does that mean? Demand is booming faster than production. Net imports will increase in the future for both oil and gas. So we have new exporters in the region, like Israel, Cyprus. But some of the traditional exporters will face some problems, like Algeria. In Algeria, demand will increase too fast so that their exports will be constrained by booming demand. Egypt today is net gas exporter, not only Zohr, but by some other discoveries like Atoll, Raven field, or recent discoveries and undeveloped fields that was discovered before. They will come into production within the next 5 years. Gas demand will boom, but production will increase faster after 2020. So we expect after 2021, Egypt will again become a net exporter after 2021. Gas production, but again, will peak between 2035 and 40. However, in proactive scenario, if these countries push for renewables, energy efficiency, and through that way kind of put pressure on demand, they could export more oil and gas in the future. And this picture, this graph shows that. Like CS, conservative scenario, PS, proactive scenario. Just maybe one word for coal. In Mediterranean region, coal is not important. Coal is important only mostly in Turkey, because Turkey has one of the largest lignite reserves in the world. And Turkish government put a policy of utilizing domestic lignite for electricity production. That is why all the increase in coal production or decrease and increase in demand in the Mediterranean region will come from Turkey. Nuclear, we do not expect new nuclear power plants in the North Mediterranean. In conservative scenario, we assume that there is a slow nuclear phase out. But in proactive scenario, more green scenario, the phase out will be faster. However, 4 countries will have power plants until 2040. In our assumptions, these will be Egypt, Turkey, Morocco, and Jordan. So the earliest one will be Turkey, around 2023. And the rest will be after 2030. Renewables, a big boom as expected, particularly in the south. Why I say particularly in the south? Because the starting value is small. But the future is more in solar than wind, especially in the south. But in any case, in any scenario, renewables will boom. Even though in proactive scenario the boom is faster, and especially for solar. Now, this have big implications for electricity generation and production. Now, as a region whole in Mediterranean, electricity consumption, here I mean final consumption, in final consumption sectors, will increase substantially. But as you can see here, South Mediterranean will increase in share in total consumption. So what does that mean? Increasing electricity consumption would necessitate increasing generation. And here I should open a parenthesis. In our model, we assume that the amount of electricity generation and the capacity that is required to generate that amount would be equal or would be sufficient to satisfy the demand. We do not forecast any trade between countries. So our aim is how much generation should be necessary to satisfy demand and how much capacity is needed to match this production. So this 32% of the share of the South and East Mediterranean actually coming from, again, 2 main actors, Egypt and Turkey, because of booming population in those countries, and also both industrial growth and economic growth in those countries. Electricity generation in the future, the share of North Mediterranean will decline. We do not expect a booming electricity generation or electricity consumption in the north because it is saturated. It is on the contrary, due to energy efficiency applications and energy conservation, it will remain stable. This is more or less what everyone else than OME also expects in the future. This will have also implications for electricity generation. Now, one thing here we should keep in mind is that why in proactive scenario there will be less electricity consumption than conservative scenario, because of energy efficiency, and energy conservation. But this means we would require to generate less electricity in proactive scenario. So we save electricity, but that means we save also money to generate that electricity. In conservative scenario, majority of electricity generation will come from gas, as is the case today. But in proactive scenario, the future is on renewables. The share of gas will diminish. I'll give you one example. What is the share of renewables? By the way, that includes hydro as well. The share of renewables in electricity generation by region: South Mediterranean, North Mediterranean, total Mediterranean. Look at just the bar on the right for total Mediterranean. The gray area, yeah, there also gray, it is more or less 25%. Today, it is 25%. And add the dark yellow, no, dark green, this will be 35% in conservative scenario. But the lighter area, lighter green, so if we push for renewables, and due to energy efficiency, we reduced also the electricity consumption and hence generation. So the share of renewables altogether, the sum, would increase 50%. Now, in North Mediterranean, which is also already the case, 30% of the electricity generation comes from renewables. In proactive scenario, by 2040, we would increase the share of renewables to 65%. So this is a huge amount. By countries, similar picture by countries. Here, 3 countries, Spain, Portugal, and Greece, come forward together with Italy. So where you have sunshine and wind, where you see the maximum, even in proactive scenario, where we have maximum, we can reach as much as 40% in proactive scenario. Again, proactive scenario, you should think of a kind of a dream area. So it is difficult to achieve, but it gives you a kind of optimistic range. In conservative scenario, more pessimistic, and proactive scenario, a bit more optimistic. The reality will be somewhere in between, perhaps closer to proactive scenario after COP21, and we will see what will happen in COP22. So this will have implications, again, generation capacity. So as you see, non-hydro renewables, the share of non-hydro renewables will boom compared to 2013, which is the base case scenario. This is a little bit complicated to understand. Let's look at an easier picture. Capacity additions by fuel in conservative and proactive scenario. In conservative scenario, the additions are shown in gray. They're gray too. Mostly gas. It is followed by wind and solar. In blue, proactive scenario capacity additions. More solar and gas. That's it. Mostly renewables. And wind. But solar is number 1. Pushing for renewables is one thing. I have 14 minutes left, and I will finish it probably on time. energy savings, because of energy efficiency, but not only simply because of energy efficiency, we assume energy conservation. So that means what? Switching the lights off, saving energy. So two sectors come forward. One is end-use sectors, but also as important is the transformation sector, which means to generate energy. This could be refineries, power plants, or any kind of transformation sector that converts primary energy to secondary energy. And similarly, we have electricity savings, of course, mostly in end-use sectors. I don't give here the breakdown, households, industry, subsectors, etc., but all together. So what both pictures tell us is the room for energy efficiency and conservation in South and East Mediterranean. You see, the saving amount is huge in the South, which is quite normal because look at the buildings in North Africa and East Mediterranean. Completely energy inefficient because there is no rules, there is nothing. And even end-use appliances, they do not have the standards that we have in Europe. So there is a big room and there is a big business opportunities for energy efficiency in the region. Now, I will come towards now to energy security implications of all these things that I mentioned before. We will have more fossil fuel production, but we will have much more fossil fuel consumption. That means we will have also increasing net imports. So that will bring security of supply, implications on budget deficits, implications on economy, implications on current account deficits, a lot of implications. If business as usual policies are followed, which we said at the beginning are not sustainable. Now let's look at import dependence. So the left part in purple, the situation in 2013 in the total Mediterranean, in North Mediterranean, South Mediterranean. So in the Mediterranean as a whole, 40% is 40% of the energy that is consumed was imported. So import dependency 40%. When we go to 2040, in conservative scenario, this is more or less the same, 41%. Why? More or less the same as a total Mediterranean. For that, we look at North Mediterranean. Import dependency decreases, even in conservative scenario. Why? Because it is the North Mediterranean is already reducing its oil and gas consumption dependence, because they are moving more green energy future. Here the most important thing is the South. 5% is of the energy that is consumed in North Africa and East Mediterranean is imported today. Only 5%. In the future, if current policies continue, they will import 30% of it. But if they switch, especially in electricity generation, to renewables and become more energy efficient, in 2040 their import dependence would be more or less the same as today. So this is import dependence. but not everything stops with import dependence and energy consumption. More and more agenda in global scene is CO2 emissions. CO2 emissions will either increase too fast if we continue the policies that we follow today, or we will reduce it, more or less, or stabilize it, better said, for total Mediterranean. It is easier to reduce it in the North Mediterranean, which you see in blue. I have to check, the numbers are not, colors are not always the same. Whatever the scenario, in the North Mediterranean, the CO2 emissions will go down. In proactive scenario, in the North Mediterranean, CO2 emissions will go down even faster. But here, again, what is the most important thing is North Africa and East Mediterranean. That is why, even in global scale, is the importance of developing countries in the energy and climate future. Enhance the cooperation between North and South. CO2 emissions and energy demand picture clearly indicates the necessity of increasing cooperation between the two shores. Now I have only 3 minutes left, and in 3 minutes I summarize. The main message is that whatever the scenario, whatever we do, we push for renewables, strong implementation of energy efficiency, energy conservation, whatever we do, the energy future of the Mediterranean will remain fossil fuel based. But there will be more and more increasing share of renewables, both in energy mix and electricity generation mix. So increasing role of renewables. And among the renewables, particularly after 2020, the importance of solar. So that is why sunny and windy electricity future. More sunny after 2020. Energy efficiency, not alone, together with energy conservation is key, especially for North Africa and East Mediterranean. And that means, together with oil and gas, which we have the areas where we have strong cooperation between South and North, but there should be more and more cooperation in terms of energy efficiency and renewables among the two shores of the Mediterranean. And with that, I thank you very much for your patience. And
okay, thank you very much, Ms. ALLAL and Mr. KARBUZ, for this presentation. I think before jumping to the conclusion with José María, we can open a question if you will have something. I have Paco de la Flor over there. Give him.
Thanks, SOHBET, for this very complete and illustrative prospective picture. More than one question is maybe a suggestion from my side. Yeah, a suggestion from my side. In what you call proactive scenario, I have maybe 4 or 5 names that could be in the subtitle. Could be, for instance, decadency, decay, decline, deterioration, or retrogression scenario for the oil and gas industry. Or, in other words, instead of the golden age of gas, the teen age of gas in the Mediterranean region. The teen is hojalata. Maybe it is a suggestion that just the panorama is quite black clouds for the future, for the oil and gas industry. Is that true?
In the North Mediterranean, yes, I agree. Especially in Europe, maybe the future of gas is bleak, but still there is room in the south. But the terminology is important, yes.
Some more questions? I would like to ask one to Mr. Woodward. How do you foresee in this report the interconnection between countries and this connection with Europe? They are going to increase electricity.
Yes, that is actually one of previous slides where
Electricity and gas, both. No?
well, gas there is already, and
Well.
there will be in the future more trade we see in terms
Okay,
of
with electricity.
gas and electricity. This is an area where we think that the traditional cooperation between the two shores will increase much faster
Yeah.
for interconnections.
Okay. Some questions more to Madame. Okay, if you, we will jump to the conclusion, to the end of this presentation with José María EGEA. All of you know him. They are members of OME, and they are supporting us in this presentation, in this event. Okay, José María, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Arcadio. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming to this presentation. I'd like to thank to the Club de la Energía for supporting this event, and allow me to congratulate the OME team for the result of this publication, especially to the Manager Director HOUDA ALLAL and the Hydrocarbon Director Mr. KARBUZ for the presentation. Mediterranean energy perspective, as we commonly call MEP 2015, arrived to our hands in a very specific moment with a difficult energy context, not just at a world level, even in the Mediterranean region. We know, and people that have been working in planning, that this kind of analysis is not easier, and the conclusion and the reality probably should be different to the picture that we have received today. But in any case, is useful for knowing the tendency and to take, if it's possible, a decision. What is clear that the region, that is a very populated region, I mean the part of the south of Europe and the north of Africa, is going to have an important energy increase. And the way that we will face to this important increase could be crucial in order for the development of the countries in the socio-economic level and the environmental context. In this environment, the result of MEP point out some key elements that I think that initially we should agree, all of us, is a very high level of energy efficiency, to have a regulatory framework well designed and stable, and to have an adequate energy diversification. I think that all of us should be agree with us. But especially I think that I would like to point out the importance of to have a regulatory framework stable and well designed, and in certain way aligned with the objective of Paris, the Conference of Paris. And in this point, I would like to call the attention for the importance of reducing the coal in order to reduce the emission and I see clearly gas natural as the best option to replace it. As Paco has mentioned, I think that I'm in the opinion that the gas natural should play an important role in the future and in this transition period, and probably I think is going to be the perfect couple for the renewable energy. This is in my opinion. You have mentioned in the area, the East Mediterranean has suffered important changes. Once political changes, I mean the Arab Spring, that has introduced, in my rough opinion, more uncertainty that other thing, and difficulties in the country, but at the same time important gas discoveries in the area. I think has been explained with you in Israel, Cyprus, Egypt. There are very important gas reserves in places that are not easier to manage. I think the development of these gas reserves could be a key instrument for the stability of the zone, of the area, and at the same time to contribute to another source of gas to Europe, and with increase the diversification. I think I see it really important to develop these areas and this reserve in an appropriate way, with an equilibrium between the countries, because I think that could contribute to the stability of the area. At the same time, we are seeing new projects for the area. I mean the Nabucco project and the TAP project that is now in construction and could allow the European people to have an alternative source of supply from Azerbaijan. What has been called for a long time the fourth corridor has been rejected, and with a lot of opposition for other players. I think that it's good for the region to have this new opportunity for being supplier. I think that to finalize, I'm fully convinced that the Mediterranean energy perspective is a useful work or a reference to have in mind in the development of the area. And I would like to thank you again for this presentation. And I'm glad to know that OME has been appointed to act as a secretary of the gas platform for the Mediterranean, that is co-leading or co-managed by the Union for the Mediterranean and the European Commission. I wish you all the best in this job. Thank you very much all for your assistance.
Thank you very much of all of you for coming. You can download this presentation for our web. It will be there today or tomorrow. And thank you to everybody, to me and Gas Natural to facilitate this presentation. And we will continue. Okay. Thank you very much.